Hi, I'm Johnny, this is Tom. Today we're going to be looking at our basic level upper body workout. As with all things lower body, we need to mobilize the two most important joints, and those are our shoulders. So before we do anything with the upper body, we look to warm those up. The first two things we're going to do are very, very simple warm-ups. One is called a Superman, and the other is a banded stretching exercise. And then we're going to use some more dynamic movements that come from things like the jiu-jitsu, martial arts worlds, and the sort of animal flow sort of systems that are out there. Right, first up, we're going to do a Superman. So Tom is going to lie flat on the floor. The idea here is that we're mobilizing the shoulder joints, particularly this, which is the scapula. So we're going to be in this position. Tom is off the ground. He's then going to just move his shoulders as much through the range of movement as possible. There's no prizes for doing this quickly. It's a very slow and controlled movement. If you want to make it a little bit more activational, you can lift your feet from the floor. So in that case now we've got glute activation here, but also some lower back activation, which is good when you're coming on to doing core exercises, because the core isn't just the abs, it's this whole region here. So good, 10, 12 of those, or around about 30 seconds, making sure we get right through here. This is not as easy as it looks. So really take time to work out how to do this. You can do it against a wall. You can put your arms up behind you against a wall and try and lift them up through that plane of motion, keeping your elbows and your hands touching a wall. It is not as easy as it looks. All right, that's good. So jump up. We're going to use a little resistance band here. Again, all the bits and bobs that we're going to use, you can freely get on the internet. They're not complex pieces of equipment. They're good for the home gym kind of scenario, but you would use them in a gym as well. This is just a standard medium strength band. I'm going to give it to Tom, and he's going to demonstrate some stuff that's going to work both through here in terms of rotational movements, which are a lot of upper body things, but also more importantly, through the backs of the shoulders and the tops of the shoulders here. So again, in this, he's got some resistance pulling against the band. That switches all the muscles on. And whilst they're switched on, he's moving through those ranges of motion. He's got loads better mobility than I have, because I've spent too much time doing bench press. But Tom here, as you can see, has got a really good mobile shoulder situation. Again, through here, rotating through here. Good. And again, you can do 10 to 12 passes, 30 seconds, that'll do it. Nothing much. And if that resistance is too much, there's a band, the other bands that you should get, probably a red color one. They tend to be a little bit less aggressive. Okay, simple movement done. The next one, and there's loads of different names for all of these. Loads of people call them differently. I know this one is a crab grab. And again, an animal flow move here, which we can come on to talking about in a few weeks' time. But basically, this one is a total body movement. So what we're going to do is elevate the bum off here. So we've now started to get some activity through the glutes and the hips, trying to keep the hips as stable as possible. Tom's going to reach up over his shoulder joint, pushing through. The whole of this arm is activated, and then back down into the crab position there. Good. Go there, other side, up again, up. Concentrating in the hips first. You can see here Tom's got some issues through the rotational element here. Lots of people are way worse. Then back over. You can either choose to do 5 on one side, 5 on the other, or alternate like Tom. Hands nicely back here, full rotation. Everything is switched on in this movement. It's a great movement. We'll just do a couple more just to loosen up. Again, the thing about all these moves is what they're doing is weak point hunting. You yourself, when you're using body weight, will be able to define where your weaknesses are, which if you can get to understand how your body moves, when you come to using weights for training, things like barbells and dumbbells, you're going to be that much more engaged with the exercise you're doing, rather than just going in and just doing the reps and sets. So again, let's try and straighten those hips out through there. Yeah, good. The good thing about these exercises, they could be done on a lower body day. There's no need to necessarily save them for an upper body day. But we very rarely warm up our upper bodies, so I like doing them on chest and back days. And stop there. Next one we're going to go and do is, well, me and Tom refer to this as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kick-through. There's probably a better name for it, but ultimately you're getting into an all fours, as if you're going to do a plank effectively, but in all fours. Similar to what a beast reach might be in terms of starting. But then we're going to get this leg first and push it through into the opposite direction. Again, huge amounts of rotational activity going on here. but whilst moving around the shoulders. So, you know, in a squat, for example, you're moving the hips through and around the hip joint. The upper body moves like this are all about shoulder girdle engagement, because these groups of muscles that work around the hips are working around ball and socket joints in the same way as the chest and back muscles around the shoulders are working around a ball and socket joint. So we must treat them the same. Good. One more on each side. And of course, what's happening here, he's firing up all these stabilizer muscles around the core. So not just abs, but everything that supports the spine. All right, stop it there, good. All right, and that concludes the warm-up, and we move on to doing some real stuff. Right, so the first block of exercise we're going to look at, which is going to set the tone for the whole of the workout, is a 3 exercise set, and it has a pushing element, a pulling element, and then an abdominals and core element to it. The reason for this is that pushing and pulling are opposing muscle groups, so when worked together you get a better holistic effect. And the second reason is that when you put lots of exercises together, you create a heart rate effect. So when we're looking at that difference between cardiovascular and weight training, it blurs the lines, and you get what's called a metabolic effect, or metabolic conditioning effect, which is great for things like fat burning and lean muscle development. So let's get cracking. The first one is a press up. We're going to do a basic press up. It doesn't mean that it's less of a press up than a full press up. It just means that if you are, you know, possibly not able to push your own body weight, it's a better place to start. Again, we want to bring the shoulders back and down, elbows facing forward. Everything stays in a plank-like format, and you literally move as one toward the bench. We're going to push around about 12 reps on this. But if you look at the way Tom's doing it, he's got a pace or a tension which is allowing his chest to stay under tension for a longer period. So if he did 12 very fast, he wouldn't be getting as much of a benefit as if he did them at this pace. So if you can't do 12 repetitions of a thing or a 30-second interval, 2 done incredibly slowly will have the same effect. So here, again, in all pushing exercises, we're hitting the chest muscles here and the assisting muscle in this group, the triceps. So you can see with him, we're getting a lot of work through here. The thing about pushing exercises is that the assisting muscle, the tricep in this case, will give up before his chest. So we need to be able to think about that when we're looking at loading. So what we're going to do is have a go at doing this flat. So onto the floor. This is a harder version of the press up. But the reason it's harder is simply because the load is now positioned further over your hands. This is creating more of an effort for the chest. So for Tom, who can do that easily, we don't want to wear the triceps out. We want to get as much load through the chest as early as possible. Go. There, good. And again, a nice tip here is the elbows should be pointing forward. You're twisting the hand out against the floor, creating what's called torque. Again, torque is something we'll come into to look at in the future. Good, excellent. Now you give me a couple more of those, and then we're going to really ramp it up because he's quite strong, is Tom. So again, using a household item like a band, we can make this a lot harder. So just jump up to your knees for me. Wrap that around the chest, around the back, hooking the hands in. Again, you can get comfortable with how this works. It's a bit uneasy at first, but effectively what you're doing is you're creating a resistance against your own weight. Now, this is a relatively medium level band, but trust me when I say this is hard. Okay, go again. Keeping those shoulders back and down. Right, so feedback on this, pretty hard. Yeah, okay, good. So you do not need a barbell and a load of plates and a squat rack to get this done. This band, which is probably exerting another 20 kilos of load through Tom, with his own body weight, is enough to give him a seriously good beach chest. All right, come up off there. All right. Next, we're going to use the band. We're going to move straight into our next exercise. Perfect exercise in this would be a chin-up because it's the most amazing bodyweight exercise to go with a press-up. But not everyone can do chin-ups, and also you don't always have a chin-up bar at home. So what do chin-ups do? Well, they work the back. They're a pulling exercise. So we've got to mimic a pulling exercise that we can do at home. And that's really simple. We're going to use our band. We're going to stand on it. We're going to create tension in it by starting a pulling. We're going to stay there. We're not going to move. There's no movement at the beginning. We are making sure that our frame is not bent and rounded, our shoulders are back and down, and the correct level of tension is in. And at that point, we start to row. Literally, bang. Nice and strong. Control at the top for 2 seconds, down again. Remember, each repetition, when controlled at the bottom and the top, adds a whole nother level of activation that you're just not going to get if you rush through. So let's get you into position. Let me get you down. Nice flat back. Glutes are switched on. He's engaged. He's fully tense. Now we can begin the exercise. Up, hold. 1, 2, and release. Good. You're not trying to round too much. You're not trying to round here. Just up, hold. 1, 2, and again, nice pace. Body's fully under tension. Good. Again, I like 12 reps for this. If you can get used to putting the body under tension for the period of time that it takes to do 12 repetitions, when you come to add loads, you can experiment with how many reps you do. So you might only do 4, but it might last the same amount. So if Tom was doing a barbell row for this, let's say 60 kilos, he might only get 4 repetitions out, but it might take him that long to do it. And that's the principle of time under tension. Good. 2 more for me. Good. And then 1 more. Good. And stop there. Now we're going to move into our abdominals exercise, which is again done straight after our back. I like to use the band because I like consistent tension always when I'm doing an abdominals exercise throughout my whole body. A simple crunch just doesn't do it for me. So again, in the same way as we started our warm-up, you're activating the shoulder blades and the shoulder joint through a bit of tension. At that point, you can either come up off the floor for a twist, or you can keep your feet grounded with small touches. I like to keep the feet grounded so that I feel the rotation the whole way through. As soon as you bring your feet off, you create an instability, which helps, but can cause you to lose your form. So again, you can play around with that. Tom, give me 10 repetitions on that one. Feet touching the floor to start with. Good. Activation, activation through the shoulder range, back's nice and stable, and then just twist away. Good. Move you to the side here. Good, right down, and you can see how that tension is switching on there as he goes. Now the important thing through here, through this exercise, is breathing. The temptation to hold your breath when you do exercises like this is huge. I don't know why, it's the opposite for what you need, because you need to get oxygen into the body. So really focus on your breathing. If you're doing things slowly and keeping the body in tension, you can see the effect is that your heart rate will go up. So you've really got to focus more on your breathing. Good. All right, one more, and that'll get us. Good. Give them tension. Excellent, and relax. Good. And that concludes the first block of exercise. So now we're going to do our second block of exercise. Again, we're looking at a pushing and a pulling and an abdominals movement put together again for the heart rate increase and those opposing muscle groups working together. First up, we're going to look with the press up. We worked on our chest and our triceps. We're now going to move that exercise to a slightly more tricep focused exercise to actually target these directly versus the chest. All that requires is bringing the hands from that position in a press up to more underneath in the body and keeping the elbows close to your body. So Tom's going to demonstrate the basic version of this exercise, and this is just simply called a close grip press. It's brilliantly effective, this, for tricep development because it uses your own body weight, whereas if you're using cables and dumbbells and what have you, you can often create shoulder problems. So you fire away, elbows staying by his sides. Good, nice pause at the bottom, full extension, nice pause at the top, good. And again, those pauses at the bottom and the top of each end of each of the movements, just generating that little bit extra edge on the exercise. And they're the difference between it being a very good exercise and it's just being an average exercise. Again, this time under tension principle with an upper body is so much more than the lower body in many ways because the upper body is weaker than the lower body. It doesn't touch the ground that often, or not as much as your feet. So when you're spending time doing these exercises, again, slower the better. Right, you do one more on that, and then we're gonna make Tom's life a little bit more difficult by elevating him and allowing his chest to go below the line of his elbow. You can use yoga blocks. These I made myself out of a bit of foam and some wood. Okay, so they're very effective parallettes. What they effectively do is allow Tom's chest to get lower than his shoulder joint, which will pre-stretch his tricep exercise and create an extra, even though it's only 2 inches, an extra element of effort. So you crack on. We're going to do exactly the same movement. Nothing changes. It's just the concept of the hands are now going to be, that's about a 2-inch depth gap there. So down you go. Good. Stop there. If we've noticed now the chest is below shoulder, this is really horrible. I'm making him shake like this, but this is a very pre-stretch. Up we come. Go. Drive. Nicely done. Give me one more of those. Little pause at the bottom. Activate and bang. Go. Up. Yeah. Drop down to your knees. Good. All right. So moving from that pushing exercise, we're going to move straight into a pulling exercise. In the same fashion as we used the resistance band to do a 2-arm exercise, what we're now going to do is a single arm row. Again, because we don't have any pulling down capabilities at home, or potentially no chinning up bar. So we are going to use the kettlebell right straight away here. You can use a travel bag full of books, you could use any type of weight that you've got around the house, but again, these things are really easy to buy on Amazon. I like to take a nice wide stance, but the closer that you come with this stance, the harder it becomes. So I'm going to get Tom to do quite a hard version. So I want him very stretched in his hamstrings, with a nice straight back. Shoulders parallel to the floor. He's going to pick up the weight now, which is directly below that shoulder, okay? And in doing so, with nice straight legs, he's literally going to be moving the kettlebell up and down, that sort of pace. And again, what you don't want is a rounded back or leaning or anything. Keep the hamstrings nice and locked out, bum engaged, shoulders nice and straight, up, pull, 1, 2, down, again, up, 1, 2, down, good. You repeat that. Okay, so, nice and tension in the legs, little bend, hips nice and straight, back nice and straight, and up. Now, the squeeze is there. 1, 2, down. And what he's not doing is he's not descending like this and causing problems here. Good. So up there, keep the heels nice and firmly on the ground. 1, 2. We're going to generate another 8, and then we're going to switch sides. Good. Now, the good thing about Tom is he's got great mobility in his shoulders, and you can see how much that shoulder blade can move freely without affecting his back position. Most of us, inclusive of myself, don't have this level of mobility for years of overdoing weights in the wrong way. And the reason that causes a problem for us is that it means we will rotate through our hips and cause all sorts of problems. So if you've got mobility like Tom, you can move freely with it. But I would always recommend moving within a nice, safe range of motion if you feel yourself twisting. Good. And let's rip it and put it on the other way. 10 per side is usually pretty good, 20 repetitions. But again, you can do these as timed intervals. So I can't count very well, so I just always look to do roughly 30 seconds for each arm, which gives me about 12 reps. But again, you can see on this side, Tom has already started to manifest some weakness on this side. He's got very big strength on here and very big. Now, that may be something to do with his lower body affecting his lower back, or it might be something to do with an old injury he may have had in the shoulder affecting down. What tends to happen is our lower backs take whichever injury, they become the centre, the epicenter of where our injuries and our pains have been, and then you can see that starting to manifest itself here. So we will probably be able to work on that in the future. Good. Give me a couple more and then we can stop. Good tension everywhere. I'm going to talk a bit about engagement in the abs in a bit, but it's worth noting here how tense Tom is in his abs, even though this is a back exercise. He's already working through. It's like he's in a plank already. Stop there. Good. We're going to move now into our abdominals exercise. So if you've done those two exercises right, the pushing element and the pulling element, and you've kept yourself in a very hollowed, tense position, he's now already fatigued his abdominal muscles. So when we come on to doing any type of activity now, which is what we're going to do, which is a slider lunge, a slider press up, he's already going to have worked through those. So again, a complex exercise is reduced in its strain because he's fatigued. So he doesn't need to do too many of them. You don't need to do 30 reps of this exercise. Now this exercise, Tom is started in the most advanced position, okay? So he's going to perform a sliding Superman lunge effectively. So go for it on one. This is a highly complex activity, but it's still only body weight, okay? No real loads at all, except that for your, which you walk around with all day long. I would recommend this, as Tom has done already, dropping to his knees. He's already tired, so to go into a full press-up plank with a movement in the shoulders is a big ask. So I always come down to the knees for this activity and just really focus on keeping my hips still. You'll try, as you will, when you're out into this position, you'll twist and you'll feel like that pain. So don't go so far, just come out to here where you're comfortable. Good. 2 more on each side. And again, slower the better in this exercise. The longer this area is under tension, the better. So there's no need to rattle through the reps. Keep the form, keep it nice and stable. Good, and stop. Good. And done. And that is the end of that block of exercise. Now we're going to look at the last block of exercise. Again, another pushing, pulling, and abdominals exercise strung together. So on the pushing, we've done our chest and we've looked at our triceps specifically. Now we're going to look at the shoulder movement, another pushing area. Again, at home, it's not as easy to do shoulders as you might think. Again, we're going to show a couple of variations here. I would always suggest being on your knees. Knees always mean that you're totally only going to be using your shoulders, rather than quite a lot of that time you see people exercising and they're using a little thrust to get their weights up. I'm going to drop Tom onto his knees here. Try and do it on a cushioned floor. We're just using knee sliders. And we're going to get the band, and you're just going to literally, like we did for the press up, wrap it up and wrap it under your armpits. Now where we're trying to aim at is here, and chiefly the whole socket. So again, a nice pace, just pressing up and above your head. Good, and nice and slowly. The band, again, this is a black one, so it's sort of medium resistance, I'd say, on this. This is enough. If you do it slowly enough, with that tension continuously through the muscle group, again, it's going to give you enough here. If you find that this is too painful and too awkward on your back, you can do this with virtually any weight. So you drop that down. I'm going to give Tom a 12-kilo kettlebell. Now, I'm only going to give him one because, again, we're making life hard for Tom because he's quite a fit chap. So one, the beauty of doing, again, a single-armed exercise, in the same way as if we were to do a single-legged exercise, is we start to find out whereabouts his weaknesses are, particularly in relation to your core. So if you set off, you're going to give me 6 reps there. What's happening is, because there's weight here and there isn't weight here, this whole region of his abdominal muscles here and his spinal stabilizing muscles are now just gunning. They're preloading for the abdominals exercise we're going to do after this. If he was to use both, this area would have evenly distributed weight and it would be tested less. So actually, single arm, decently weighted shoulder presses are about, especially kneeling, are about one of the best core exercises you can do. You can make it harder. You may have seen in the gym those upside down half Swiss balls called Bosus. Again, they're very useful to sit on, or sorry, to kneel on doing this exercise, because then you get even further engagement in these areas down here. But just for this exercise, a single arm pressing exercise, only at 12 kilos. Tom could probably do 35 with a dumbbell, but this exercise here, that's just like a piece of iron. Excellent. Just going through that motion, 6 and 6. Good. Now, if you're doing single arm exercises, obviously it takes longer to do it. But actually, if you just drop the repetitions and spend a little bit more time under tension, you're going to get the same outcome. And all the while, your heart rate's having to work. So you're getting that whole benefit of the heart rate. The next exercise we're going to do is going to use a piece of equipment called a TRX. Most people have heard of the TRX, and the reason for that is it's pretty much the most fundamental part of anyone's home gym, in my view. And you can use this piece of kit anywhere. We've chosen to use it attached to our frame here, which we've built. And this could be a tree branch, it could be a staircase, it could be anything outdoors, and we've literally used this hooking mechanic. You can buy for this a door anchor, which when you shut a door from the inside, so pulling in the inside that way, it can overlap into the door and you trap it. And again, you can start to use your doorways in your home as exercise environments. We're going to use this for a back exercise. I'm going to demonstrate a back row. Again, this is moving forwards from where we were with the pulling exercises earlier to more of like an exercise like a chin-up, because the weight's now moving upwards and we're keeping nice and plank-like, and again using that contraction through the shoulder blades to maximize the effect of this exercise. What you're not doing is this and allowing the shoulders to sort of hunch up. You're really contracting the shoulder blades, spending a bit of time in tension, and just nice smooth movements. You crack on, give me 12 of those. There are other brands of these. This is my favorite. The beauty of the TRX is that you can make it harder or easier by extending the length and the angle of which you're on the floor. If you're going to get into angles, you can start to see on this floor here, Tom is having a little bit of slippage. Just be careful of that. The floor surfaces that you choose to use may not be as grippy. So I'm just going to stand here and act as his super friend, as old Kelly Starrett would say, and just make it a little bit safer. If you've got a box or a bench or a table to go against, equally that will work. But if you've noticed what Tom's doing here is he's moving his hands in and out. Now in pulling and pushing exercises, in the same way as when you're doing leg exercises, where your hands are neutral, what's called supinated and what's called pronated, activates different areas of your back. In a pressing motion, if you're open or you're in neutral, i.e. in that position, or you're going to be doing an exercise that maybe looks like a flying exercise, like a scooping exercise, they activate different areas of the muscle group. So again, very simply using body weight and hand position, you can create lots of different exercises. Tom's using it throughout the entire range of this, and we can probably call this your last rep and move straight in next to our abs exercise. Good. Okay, so in the same way earlier as we did an exercise where we had his hands moving out forwards in front of us as Superman fashion, we're going to use this as a mountain climber slider version using the lower body. So Tom's formed himself into a press up. He's got the shoulders are nice and straight and strong, arms are straight and strong here. Now all of the abdominal muscles are generating, that we're acting are now into the lower region here. Oblique muscles rolling through here, the lower abdominal regions and the lower rectus abdominals. All of those working here. Now again, don't rush this exercise. You've seen plenty of YouTube videos with this, like guys doing HIIT who are just smashing this in and out. That is not what this is for. This is for a nice, slow, controlled, what's called an isometric hold with movement. So this element of him is not moving. This is the isometric, and this is the flexion and contraction element. And after a while, he will start to feel this in his upper body, which is about now. Stop, Tom. Good. And good. And that concludes the third block of exercise.